We will begin day 2 of the Huddle 2020 with a keynote address by the Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe, former Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. This session is titled Economic and Strategic Integration in the Region. May I please invite on stage the Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe, former Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. He will be in conversation with Mr. N. Ram, Chairman, the Hindu Group Publishing Private Limited.
Good morning. As has been mentioned, the subject is economic and strategic integration in the region. And let me say a few words about the Honorable Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, MP and United National Party leader, three-time Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, comes from a political and newspaper-owning family connected with the iconic Lake House Group. His father, Mr. Esmond Wickremesinghe, was headed and developed the Lake House Group of newspapers and was internationally recognized for his commitment to a free and independent press. A lawyer by training, Mr. Wickremesinghe was first elected to Parliament in 1977, has wide-ranging experience in government, holding a large number of ministerial portfolios, including industries, science and technology, policy planning, economic affairs, child, youth and cultural affairs, law and order, national policies, resettlement, rehabilitation, Northern Province development, vocational training, skills development, and youth affairs. I've known him for a long time, and he's a firm believer. He was a firm believer in a political solution to the Tamil question in a united Sri Lanka. And as many of you know, he was the architect of the ceasefire agreement with the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, signed on February 22nd, 2002, and it lasted with periodic violations by both sides until 2007. And he's also committed, he has thought deeply about economic reform and economic restructuring, and has been firmly committed to economic integration of the region. He will define the region. There are overlapping regions that he's talking about, but he is well known for advocating in government and outside, when he was leader of the opposition, economic integration, which he'll explain. That's the theme of this talk. He's also conceptualized an economic sub-region comprising the 5 southern states and Sri Lanka, a region with a population of 300 million and a combined GDP of more than 500 billion US dollars. So let me now introduce one of the most erudite heads of government, former head of government, one of the top political leaders in our region and anywhere in the world, Mr. Wickremesinghe.
Thank you, Ram. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before I start on the topic, let me say what a great pleasure it's for me to be here with you all at Huddle 2020, where you all come together in mind to refine discussion, debate and dialogue, which is missing in many parts of our world. And having listened to you all yesterday, I think the Huddle is a good example of what Rabindranath Tagore said, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sands of dead habits. integration and trade is not new to us. Starting with the Mohenjo-daro Harappa civilization, for over 4,000 years, trade has played an important role in the integration of the subcontinent and Southeast Asia. Buddhism removed the restrictions on seagoing, and then the Mauryan Empire became a catalyst for promoting regional trade. Though kingdoms rose and fell, trade has always been a consistent factor. People had only their self-interest in mind, only trading. I'll give one good example, which is in the 9th century. The Pallava kingdom came to a treaty with the Anuradhapura kingdom in Sri Lanka and the Srivijaya kingdom to control the total trade in the Bay of Bengal. So their rivals, the Cholas, decided first to take on the Pallavas, defeat them, take on the Sri Lankans, defeat them, and finally get out in Ameda to Srivijaya and defeated them. With the traders also went the missionaries. So they took with them the cultures, the languages, and the religions of this subcontinent, including Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. For instance, during the time of Buddha, Tapasvi and Ballika, the first trader converts, brought the message of Buddhism to Sri Lanka. Kaundya, a Brahmin, traveled much further to start the Funan kingdom, which was formed around the Mekong River in Southeast Asia. The proliferation of culture alongside trade led to the creation of a robust network of the Natukotai Chettiars, which spanned Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, and South Vietnam until the mid-20th century. They had over 1,500 businesses in Myanmar alone before World War II. Now I think that beats HSBC or any other effort of financial integration in BIMSTEC, SAARC, or RCEP, I would say. The total geographic extent of this region has never been clearly defined, because what is called South and Southeast Asia actually constructs of the British and the Americans after World War II. And these two, reference to two regions, led to the formation of two regional groupings which divided the Bay of Bengal in two. For us, after ASEAN was formed, the request for a regional grouping in the subcontinent came from President Zia Rahman in Bangladesh in 1977. This was the time I asked, I was a member of the cabinet, and I asked President Jayawardena, well, what can you get out of regional grouping? He said, if we can get India and Pakistan to the table, keep them talking and avoid a war, that will be sufficient. Finally, the 7 heads of government met in Dhaka in 1985, and we formed SAARC. This was followed by the South Asian Preferential Trade Agreement in 1995 and the South Asia Free Trade Agreement in 2006. But as you know, neither of these agreements has resulted in a meaningful degree of economic integration. The inter-regional trade amounts to only 5% of the total trade, and it has not in any way promoted integration. Then in 1977, after the fall of the wall, India and Thailand took the initiatives to form the BIMSTEC. The first summit was held only in 2004, and the subsequent summits were held intermittently. So BIMSTEC also doesn't have a clear vision or a goal. And it took 10 years after the first summit to establish the BIMSTEC Secretariat, which is still underfunded.
BIMSTEC is the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation. For those, sorry.
And their record on economic integration is also insignificant. They still haven't got an agreement ratified. But Southeast Asia started slow, and a successful march towards integration with ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Then they had the ASEAN Free Trade Area in 1992, and ultimately they want to establish the ASEAN Economic Community. Thereafter, President Clinton started the grouping of Asia-Pacific Economic Community, which really encourages multilateralism, though they have no agreement among themselves. The first Asia-Pacific agreement is the Comprehensive Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. This is the TPP minus USA. It is signed by 11 Asia-Pacific countries and ratification by Singapore, Japan, Vietnam, Australia, New Zealand and Mexico, 6, has brought it into effect. And then you have the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which is Asian dominated, which has the whole of ASEAN, 3 East Asian giants, and the Australia, New Zealand. Though it's not as deep as the other agreement, it has enabled China to come in. And all these agreements mean that they have substantially lowered tariffs in services and in goods. Many items have been liberalized and market access conditions have been improved. And then overarching all this is the Belt and Road Initiative. I think it's HSBC calls it the globalization's next chapter. It is the connectivity it promotes physically and economically, increases the economic clout of China in the world, not only in our region. The current large-scale infrastructure projects funded under BRI, South Asia includes 3 ports, including one in Hambantota, and the 3 economic corridors, with China, with Pakistan, with Myanmar, and with Nepal, and will recast our regional connectivity, because then China comes into the Indian Ocean. They got a land access through Gouda and the Kayakpu ports. Then, in parallel to this, they also have the FTA agreements with some of the countries. So today, Asia-Pacific is the largest economically integrated region in the world. There are a series of trade agreements covering 4 continents in its integration architecture. Basically, other than North Korea and USA, everyone else in Southeast Asia, East Asia, Pacific, and the Pacific coast of America in it. And USA will, I think, join it at some stage. Within a decade, certainly, they will be there. And it's already affecting us. The CPATT reduced tariff on apparel exports between members. So if you take 2 items, male trousers, HS 620342, and brassieres, HS 621210, it will lead to Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, who are major exporters, losing their markets in Canada, Australia, and Japan to Vietnam. That's a fellow member. You lower the tariffs, and you've lost the market. So what do? We are not economically assimilated. We are just on our own. Do we stay separate, or do we come together? We feel that as an integrated regional grouping, we'll have the strength to negotiate agreements with others, including RCEP. India also had this issue of going into RCEP. Together, we are in a better position to negotiate them. And we also, from the time of independence, have had a certain clout and voice in the global fora. Now, if we stand as we are, and the rest of Asia is integrated, and later on we have to apply to RCEP individually, we become an appendage. Then you lose your clout. Your clout is reduced. And this is going to have consequence for India, because you will lose your prestige and predominance. If SAARC and BIMSTEC have no importance, then India also will lose its clouts in the region, affecting your aspirations to carve out a leading global role. So, without regional economic and security integration, we don't have any other options. But where are we? For instance, the Kathmandu SAARC summit in 2017 has been postponed. But it not be on a never-never basis. We've had these disputes earlier, as Mr. Narayan knows, and some of them were not even between India and Pakistan. After acrimonious debate, we get back online. The real issue is not so much these disputes, but the inertia in our countries towards regional integration. We want trade agreements and reduce tariff rates, but we are not willing to take the required economic restructuring. You can't have one without the other. I think this is an impact the Bombay Plan of 1944 had on all of us, which came on the basis that indigenous industries cannot compete in a free market and required government intervention. And with that has come this economic bureaucracy. But 80 years later, Indian firms, our firms, have shown their ability to compete and win in the global markets. But what is the cost? Today we have less than 1% of the network of world's total production of exports. ASEAN has 8%. That is the difference. And today we talk of growth in the countries, yes, driven by domestic demand, which means our imports are far outstripping our exports. And how long can you go increasing trade deficits? And then there is about 150 million young people who are coming into the employment market by 2030. Is this growth sufficient to create jobs for them? IMF has noted a productivity boost of 20%, taking in India for over 20 years, if it accelerates its structural reforms, including elimination of trade and investment barriers. This one, without any structural reforms in India and Sri Lanka, will give us annual growth of 3%. And by 2040, we will be contributing 35% of the global growth. I won't go into details. There are 3 good reports which I recommend. South Asia ready to take off by the IMF, a glass half full promise of regional trade in South Asia, World Bank, and exports wanted, World Bank. Just get onto the internet and download it. That's all that is there if you want to read it. Since SAARC is deadlocked, where do we start? BIMSTEC is not a substitute for SAARC, but it's a good point for integration. And we have a tremendous potential. By 2030, our population is 1.7 billion people. The current inter-regional trade is $40 billion. According to a report, reinvigorating BIMSTEC by your own Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, they say the trade potential is $250 billion. That's a six-fold increase. BIMSTEC also has the added advantage of being a bridge to ASEAN. One problem we have is that the member countries are asymmetrical to one another, unlike ASEAN. So if you want to succeed, my contention is get the 4 countries with economies that are complementary. That is India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Thailand together. Our combined GDP is $3.5 trillion out of a total one of BIMSTEC of $3.7 trillion. And this will not hurt India because at the end of it, in this last year, your trade surplus over the other 3 is $9 billion. So I propose a 4-pronged economic integration roadmap. Firstly, do the structural reforms, because in South Asia, indexes for tariff and non-tariff barriers are roughly 2 to 9 times higher than imports from the rest of the world. That's one example of the barriers to trade. So there are a whole lot of para-tariffs and non-tariff barriers we have to remove. The removal of tariff is a more complex process, needing examination of adjustment costs versus efficiency costs. And there are affected enterprises, stakeholders who will require more time for adjustment. It's a political issue of how you place them. First, start with the ones that can benefit, then come to the others last. Then I must talk of e-commerce, which exceeds 10% of the retail trade in our countries. In ours, it's only 2%. There's another good World Bank report called Unleashing E-Commerce for South Asian Integration. That's the fourth one you can download. So we can use it as one of the things. Thirdly, this is something I've been talking for a long time. Just have an economic sub-region of our five southern states and Sri Lanka. We have a population of over 300 million people. This economic sub-region should also have a broadband corridor, and it should optimize the complementaries which will accelerate regional integration. Now we are having a new port coming near Trivandrum. We have the Colombo port, and the next phase is extension the north of Colombo, making the largest container traffic port in the region. Then India is ready for a logistic takeoff. We'll have the offshore financial center, shipping, logistics, offshore finance, IT, and maximize opportunity in the global value chain. That's something that's possible. We're also doing a similar exercise with Bangladesh and West Bengal. So I am suggesting is that coronavirus has shown that you need a second workshop of the world. So these two economic sub-regions and Thailand and maybe also Mumbai and Gujarat, ideal propositions to take over. And the fourth is tourism. Why don't you have Bay of Bengal cruise tourism? We can easily rival Mediterranean and the Caribbean with the Asian middle classes. Bring in Maldives, Malaysia, Singapore, and you can work out. So these are ones that will really drive regional integration. But I must say that regional integration must be market-driven, and it must provide deeper integration than RCEP. Then we are ready to negotiate with RCEP. Do it in 2 years. If you can't do it, forget about it. That's what I would say. BIMSTEC is too bureaucratic-driven. It must be flexible. So I'm looking at a new apex body which can prepare it for 2 years. In the meantime, BIMSTEC Secretariat can be reorganized, and if we really want it to be serious, the head of the Secretariat must be treated at ministerial level. Now we take it at ministry secretary level. No, it has to be at the ministry with the political leadership. And then you have the other important aspect is regional connectivity. Other than BRI, there are a large number of other programs. I think India's two biggest one is your Kaladan multimodal transport project and the India-Myanmar Thailand. I mean, those are important. Japan's quality infrastructure investments, there are many. For instance, the East-West Economic Corridor, the Bay of Bengal Industrial Growth Belt, there are about 3 projects, connectivity projects in India, in Sri Lanka. And the South Asian and the Asian Development Bank has a 10-year South Asian sub-region economic cooperation project to strengthen multimodal cross-border transport networks. So there is a lot to be done, which BIMSTEC can undertake. But this appetite for connectivity and related infrastructure is also connected to security today. The means of influencing countries are today through connectivity and infrastructure. You don't send battleships or cruisers out anymore to influence countries. One is, of course, BRI. And they have the Chinese, they have the BRI, Asia for Asian strategy, and the PLA's Far East Forces concept, which is based on a network of partnerships and will tilt the balance of power in this part of the world. Then you find USA and its allies having to responding to this with Indo-Pacific and the Quad, an attempt to safeguard the existing balance of power. So today you have to contend somewhat paradoxically with a security architecture involving linked to USA and an economic architecture involving China. This is the Asia-Pacific's main problem. Unlike Asia-Pacific, we have no such security structures. And what the security structure of the Asia-Pacific cannot come into the Indian Ocean. Then what is the Indo-Pacific? The USA stops it on the western coast of India. But all of us, including India, takes the IRA definition. So for us, it starts in the east coast of Africa and goes to the Pacific coast of America. And when we think of security, for us, the major issue is the increasing presence of naval ships belonging to outside stakeholders. For us, the sea lines of communication is the life of global commerce and must be open for peaceful use. So I think your Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, Narendra Modi, is advocating a third way, that is open and inclusive Indo-Pacific. Now, we also agree with it. And we have taken the initiative in promoting code of conduct on freedom of navigation in the Indian Ocean. We are only looking at the Indian Ocean, but the same concept as Prime Minister Modi. And we say there should be an effective enforcement machinery and should include what the others haven't said, safeguarding undersea cables, a lifeline as vital as the sea lanes. Just imagine your internet is not working and you can't get at your children in America. We had the first 1.5 diplomatic track meeting in Colombo in 2018. And there we want to avoid security polarization in our region. And we want to base our security cooperation on agreed threats within the region. For instance, we have agreed on terrorism, piracy, human smuggling, narcotics, and the presence of non-state actors. And we have made progress. It's not big programs, big events, but look at we have the BIMSTEC Convention on Cooperation in Combating International Terrorism, Transnational Organized Crime, and Illicit Drug Trafficking. And we've established joint working group. Very impressive, except for one thing. The member countries have not ratified the convention. And we must also ratify the Convention on Mutual Legal Assistance on Criminal Matters. In the meantime, we've had the BIMSTEC National Security Chiefs annual meetings. India has hosted the first BIMSTEC military exercise on boosting interoperability among our forces to contain terrorism. Then the trilateral maritime security cooperation between India, Sri Lanka, and Maldives have been revived. We have joint cooperation in patrolling the exclusive economic zone and combating piracy. The Bay of Bengal littoral states, we have participated in the Milan naval exercises, and there is, of course, the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium and the Gaul Dialogue, which provides for SAARC and BIMSTEC Navy chiefs to get together. So the building blocks for regional security in BIMSTEC are falling into place below the radar. That's all, but it's working. But successful security integration is also dependent on SAARC becoming fully functional. Though we have no SAARC summits, actually the officials and the ministerial discussions take place. People-to-people contact are there. Funding is received. Meetings of the SAARC non-governmental organizer held regularly. There's a new secretary coming in to the Secretary General coming in for the SAARC from Sri Lanka. I think he was earlier High Commissioner here. But it's not fully functional. And we must also remember the Indo-Pakistan tensions have made us a possible site for nuclear conflict, South Asia. We are marked. This shows the necessity to restore normalcy. And yesterday you had your discussion on the Kashmir Gambit. Though these disputes are bilateral issues, it has to be resolved by the two countries at a level which permits the summits to take place. This requires solution to the underlying issues of terrorism, including cross-border terrorism. So I think terrorism has to be dealt with, but there has to be resumption of relations between the two countries. And look at Asia and Pacific. if you look at the economic integration that has taken place, that itself is a disincentive for the conflict. So annually they all get together and blast each other at the Shangri-La dialogue. But it's only regional integration with the existing Asia-Pacific network which will enable us to create rapid economic growth. There's also another part of it. We become the first economic integrated region in the Indian Ocean. Now that gives a new role for us, especially India. You push regional integration towards East Africa. Then you are a key player in bringing regional integration from the East African coast to the Pacific coast of the Americas. That's where I think for all of us, including India, there is a role to play by increasing our voice and weight in the global fora. So this is a challenge which I feel we must take. I don't think there are any other options.
Thank you very much. This text is quite detailed, is available for those interested. You can ask Mukund, Padmanabhan and others to make it available. He's made it available. Thank you for that. But before I ask questions about this, I was remiss in not acknowledging the presence of Professor Maitri Wickremesinghe, a literary theorist. She's a scholar, researcher, and also teaches in a university in Colombo. So thank you for being here. And I wish you could have involved her in some of the sessions. But back to this subject. First, before we come to political tensions, Ranil, there's inertia towards integration, economic integration. Let's drill deeper into that. Why? Why is there this inertia, and which is absent in Southeast Asia and some other parts? What's peculiar about our region? Have you thought about it?
I thought we got independence 10 years before them, when Lasky's thoughts were dominating. But I think it's also the Indian, it's the Bombay plan.
Yes.
But World Bank also had a plan for Sri Lanka which said, stick to agriculture, you shouldn't get into industry. They told the same thing to Japan, which decided not to follow the advice. But from there onwards, we've been looking at agriculture. And we are talking ourselves as agricultural nation. We are catering to the agricultural sector when in fact it's less than 1/3 of the economy and even less than 50% of our vote base. But we are stuck there. And the feeling that we have to protect our industries has also got us into the same position. What I see, the China I saw in 1979 was very much like this. But the China I saw in 1989 had taken the steps. By 1990, they've taken more steps. By 2009, they've taken the final steps. And in 2017, I went, they had got BRIs. So it is something inbuilt, we sort of accepted it as a part of our system. It is not so. And I think Sri Lanka proved it in 77 when we started our first round of liberalization. And there are so many interest groups that actually are against it.
From your own experience in government and also in opposition, what are the obstacles you saw in Sri Lanka towards moving in this direction, economic restructuring?
One was a political objection of having the opposing part, which now is in government, which was against this and has become a lobby for different interest groups, even the pushing for a greater economic cooperation with India. But you've got to overcome it. You must have the strength to take the measures and go ahead. When President Kumaratunga was there, she took some steps which even we may not have taken, like partially privatizing the telecoms.
Coming to political tensions, it's you are promoting integration in SARC, and yet you see these two large countries at each other's throat all the time, and it is clearly the biggest obstacle towards regional integration. Can it be avoided, or you can circumvent this?
That's why circumvent, I said, by using BIMSTEC, and within BIMSTEC, these 4 countries, which really started the original grouping around the Bay of Bengal. But once that succeeds, I think that's an example for others to join it. In the meantime, have your separate discussions with Pakistan, bring it together. But if you make this succeed, then you will add, that's about 3.5 altogether, you get about 3.7 trillion onto that. And Pakistan, Maldives, Afghanistan, others coming will bring about another 400 billion in. So it is basically a 4 trillion economy. But it's certain areas, for instance, you will find Gujarat, Maharashtra, complementary with Sindh and West Punjab, which can push it forward. But poverty is also base for terrorism in Pakistan.
This need for normalization, at least sufficient to allow SARC summits and bilateral cricket matches?
Yes, bilateral cricket matches, SARC summits, but a lot more can be done by non-governmental organizations. People, they are doing it at that level. But why not first start with this, then they know it's serious, and then look at, Pakistan is also connected to a issue of Kashmir, it's all internal issues. But otherwise, you may find outsiders coming and telling you sort it out. Not us in South Asia.
Now, in Sri Lanka, this constant thing, India, China, the balancing of these two big powers and so on, what has been your experience? Our impression is my impression is this is exaggerated. This tension.
It is exaggerated. As far as we are concerned, we know our relationship with India, that you can't change, we don't want to change. It's the same culture. As I said, I ate dosa today here, which is like Sri Lanka. You won't get that when you go down to Jodhpur or up into Srinagar. So that's one part of it. But more than that, we have our own relations with India, our security needs, which we are both identified. We will not let each of our country be a threat to the others. So within this, we can deal with anyone we want to. I even told the Chinese, they also understand. They say, no, we don't want to put you into trouble. And of course, they're having economic expansion. You can't blame a country for having economic expansion when you can do the same. Other is that our links to India are different from China. Taking all this off, I might talk about the Chettiars even today. The unofficial or the black market trade between India and Sri Lanka, between Sri Lanka and Chennai, is bigger than our trade with many countries. And that can't stop. That's been going on for thousands of years. And if you all want to get money transferred to any other part of South Asia, Colombo is a better destination than Dubai. Why are you going to Dubai when you can come here and do it? The Chinese would have done it if it was that way. And Chinese, I feel at the moment, cannot bring their big ships and all in. It's basically a very strong economic diplomacy they are doing. And it's a question of how do you respond. Now, India can't respond unless India also opens up. And it has a deep pocket like China. If you want a deep pocket, you've got to carry out these changes.
Your interest in the geopolitics of the Indian Ocean and the need to go deeper into this. Can you tell us something about that?
Yes, I find this is one area that has not been explored sufficiently. I spent 2 stints in MIT, Center for International Studies, and I found that each time I was there, that I was the expert on the Indian Ocean, and there are many aspects of it which I didn't even know. So whenever I left, there was no other expert till I came back about 8 or 9 years. It's the same in many places that I've been to, and this is becoming more important. This is becoming the center of global rivalry and polarization. But we don't do. If you study Indian Ocean, we started studying mainly the aspects, firstly, the environment, which are really necessary, and the blue economy, that is also necessary, the trade. So I think we have to now start focusing on the geopolitical aspects of the Indian Ocean and work from there, because finally all these relations are determined by geopolitics. So with a focus on it, it's only now that think tanks are coming up in our region, a few in Sri Lanka, more in India, some in Pakistan, in Bangladesh. But if you look at Korea, Japan, even China, there are a large number of think tanks and coming into Singapore. So thought that I should, together with people I know in this part of the world and other parts, start this think tank which will focus on the geopolitics of the Indian Ocean.
So thank you very much. This, I think now I'll turn it over to you for questions and perhaps invite Mr. Narayanan in case he wants to say something too, because he has experience in this area, and then I'll take the questions from there. Mr. Narayanan, would you like to please give him the mic? Mr. M.K. Narayanan, former National Security Advisor, Director of the Intelligence Bureau, Governor of West Bengal, etc., etc.
Yeah, thank you, Your Excellency, for what I think was a...
We can't hear you, MK.
Hello? Is that? Okay. Yeah. I said thank you, Your Excellency, for what was a brilliant tour de force of where our relations in this part of the world... Can you hear?
Volume up, or give him a better mic.
Okay, is it any better?
Yeah.
All right. No, I said I just thanked His Excellency Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe for doing a very difficult job of covering up the entire area and the region of the Indian Ocean for, I think, in the space of about 30 minutes. If India and Pakistan cannot come to terms, I think the most important link that we have in this part of the world is A, with Sri Lanka, and the other is with Bangladesh. I think if India, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka can form a kind of a consortium in terms of economic and even more so in terms of the security paradigm, I think there is a great deal that can be achieved. Automatically, I think Nepal will come into play. I think there are elements in Pakistan would then find it difficult not to be part of this country. And I think what Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe mentioned was that if India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and the South Asian region put their security and economic needs together, we will have what I think is a major challenge to even a country like China. Because whatever you might say, there is fear of China. The world is all built around Tanzania. China is the center of the world. So that's a mood that is going to be difficult to erase, at least in the coming half a century at least. I think that's what this region, I don't think the South Asian region has ever been seen as a conquering nation. Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe talked about the Natukotte Chettiars. They conquered the whole of Asia, not through strength of arms, by dealing with money. And I think money is what makes the world go round. And I think maybe we should look at, I think this is a reminder of what has been our potential, what we can do. And rather than being concerned that every government in Sri Lanka is looking towards China or to someone else, should realize, I think there's a natural synergy between China and, between Sri Lanka and India. And nothing in the world, irrespective of whichever form of government is in Sri Lanka or in India, that synergy cannot be broken. So I would suggest that we start off, and I think if Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe is willing to do this, take the lead in trying to build, beyond the governments themselves, a dialogue amongst those committed to this new idea, that we need to have an axis between India, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh, including Nepal, hopefully bring Pakistan into it at some different stage, which I think will make an indestructible union, both in terms of the economy and in terms of the our security needs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who had the hands first?
Yeah, yeah.
Please. Yeah,
Mr. Wickremesinghe, thank you for your insights. I just want to ask on the status of Hambantota port. This is actually gets into this when you were talking about Chinese influence, and I know that Sri Lanka was effectively forced to cede that port on lease to China for 99 years some time back, and then Sri Lanka was making efforts to try to get the port back from China. It's a matter of great concern to some of us in India that China has a foothold right in that region, so to speak. Can you just elaborate on where we stand with reference to that?
The Hambantota port was built at the request of the then President and present Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, because he wanted to have a port in his hometown, in his constituency. So as a result, he embarked on it. The the international agencies and India were not willing to fund it because it was not viable. In fact, the first idea of a port was taken up when I was the Prime Minister, but that was going to be a very small port, only for the purpose of having an additional refinery and a coal-powered plant. So therefore you needed just sufficient capability for a ship to come in and go out. But he made it into a whole-scale port without the energy structures. Now it was running at a loss even under him. And when we came to power, we had to start repaying the installments. There are no way in which that, you can't have a port without a hinterland. So you had a port and you had no hinterland. All you could have put in were bananas, and we didn't have enough bananas like the Caribbean to start exporting. So we had talks with the Chinese, and I told the Chinese, look, we can't pay. Hey, we won't pay. And if there's any legal cases, it's up for, you all also made a mistake. There were no feasibility studies. So why are we being asked to pay? We'll bring out the fact that there were no proper feasibility studies. Actually, this was the time in 2009, as was mentioned here yesterday, IMF was encouraging all countries to give money, and happily China gave money so that our part of the world would at least not go under with the financial crisis. And there are many projects like that in Sri Lanka, some they had paid off. And the final agreement was that, all right, then I said, first I will try to sell it. If you can't sell it, I won't pay it. So then we discussed that. I must say President Xi was very, he didn't take a hardline stand, and the Prime Minister both. Finally, they said they will bite over on a joint partnership. Of course, we didn't have all the money, so we said for them to operate. But they also said it meant that they had to have a special economic zone. Well, it made sense, but you couldn't have a port without a hinterland. But that's like a 30 to 40 year project. The way we worked out, it would have taken at least 30 odd years before any monies were made. So that's how we came to about 70-year agreement. But even with a new port in Trivandrum, you're talking about 60 years to get a payback period. But I put in that all the security aspects are under the control of the government of Sri Lanka, all naval security aspects. And our naval southern command, which is in Galle, has to be shifted to Hambantota. In any case, we have a southern army, the southeast army headquarters are there, and there's a division that is stationed there. So that's, we can't see a problem on the security side. And the Chinese also won't. I mean, first you have to get your ships across Malacca Straits. So that's a difficult issue. But it's going to be a key component in their plan for the economic development, or some say the economic penetration of the Indian Ocean countries, with zones everywhere. There's going to be one in Myanmar, there'll be one in Bangladesh. So there's going to be a fair amount there in East Africa. So it will play a key role in their economic plans. But I can't see it being done. And in any case, we will not allow our soil to be used for any action that is deemed to be hostile to India. So that's the end of the story.
Yes.
I go and homage to Your Excellency. I mean, it was a brilliant analysis on economics and trade in the region.
Can you use the mic, bring it closer to you?
Yeah. It was a brilliant analysis on economics and trade. And for a moment, I forgot that you are a politician and you didn't speak any politics. I wish that many prime ministers in the region learn economics. And it's very important that there's a lot of synergy within South Asian people. My name is James Sarpudaraj. For the last 18 years, I lived in all the South Asian countries as an NGO representative. And I find a lot of synergy. And what the governments have failed in terms of bringing the synergy of people-to-people contact that you mentioned, NGOs have brought about. And our Bollywood movies have really brought the unification of South Asia, I should say, because every single country in the region. And military security is absolutely important. And more than that, I think it's the human security. If you look at a country like Costa Rica, I mean, if you have to see the guns, you have to go to a museum and see, because the regionals, they have a very good understanding with the countries in the region that nobody will wage war. And just a particular question that I want to ask you is, you mentioned about people-to-people contact and NGOs. In your understanding, can you list at least two things? What a government can do in the region in terms of bringing regional integration among the people of South Asia. The people crave for regional integration, but not the governments.
Okay, thank you.
Well, with Buddhagaya and Tirupati, I think we are doing quite well without having government-to-government intervention. When there are cricket matches in India, our people go there. When there are cricket matches in Colombo, they come here. I think we are managing it. All we need is more airlines flying into Sri Lanka and going back to India. That's all, I think.
And the land link bridge.
And the land link. So that's all. More transport connectivity, the people look after themselves. As they become richer, they know what they have to do. A lot of weddings are taking place in Sri Lanka. It's a different type, and we won't ask, our Inland Revenue won't ask any questions from you as to how you got the money.
I think two more questions, and because we run out of time.
When the seventh
No,
fleet,
you had your hand up. Yeah.
when the seventh fleet landed,
We can't hear you. We can't.
When the seventh fleet landed in the Indian Ocean, Mrs. Gandhi very politely asked them to leave, and there was no fuss on either side of the event. Neither from the American side nor from Indian side. It was quite simply done. That somehow doesn't happen today. There's a lot of tweeting, hashtagging, wanting to know of public opinion. Does that not hamper just straightforward simplicity and solving of a solution?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, you had. No. You stick to a question, please.
From Oslo to Ontario, the Sri Lankan Tamil diaspora they are doing extremely well. Education and economy. How do you like them to integrate into your society so that everybody can prosper? You can bring peace to your paradise island, President. Yeah.
Well, many of the Tamils, Sri Lankan Tamils in India do come back regularly to Sri Lanka. As long as they don't lose their status and the benefits here, they'll be in Sri Lanka.
Last
I have
question.
question.
Yes.
Hello.
Respected President, sir, I just want to ask you the last election, what you held in your country, and you lost that election. Whether this terrorist attack on the church affected your election, or what do you think? Because the president is also a brother of President Prime Minister. Or there is any coup against your government because you are not ready to resign also before? Then do you think something unconstitutional happened in your country or some other country has done this all? Okay. I just want to know this. Thank you very much, sir.
There are many other questions we could have asked him about the LTT and so on. We avoided doing that because this was on integration. But if he wishes,
No,
he can
I would
answer
say that the Easter bomb had a very adverse impact. In fact, from our pollings done until June, July, it would not have been even worth contesting an election. But slowly, because we stabilized the economy again, started pumping money back, and got things back to normal, life back to normal, we felt we were in a position to contest. Maybe the system was also looking for someone outside the politicians, per se.
Sir, I have a question. Here.
Is it a relevant question?
Yes.
Yeah. Where? I can't see you. If you can get up. Yeah.
I'm here.
Who's that? Yeah. So,
Sir, why don't each country have, they can't able to look like population is 25%, agriculture and forestry is 25%, water body is 25%, and living space is 25%. This all four together, it will balance all the country in all the manner. Is there any country looking in this perfect vision to balance the natural resources to the population?
no, I don't know what. No, that was not relevant.
A
Thank
general
you.
statement, I think. It's more
Yeah,
a
it's a
question
statement,
of
yeah.
intention.
So, on that note, thank you very much for this. And one of the most erudite former heads of government in our region and anywhere in the world. So, thank you very much. The text is available for those interested.
Thank you very much. May I please request Mr. N. Ram to present a memento to the Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe.